Hello students, and welcome to our ILS approach execution video. Before we jump into the cockpit, let's quickly discuss the objective of this maneuver and some key factors that we'll be focusing on. ILS stands for Instrument Landing System, and it is a way for pilots to navigate from the en route or arrival phases of an IFR flight to the approach and landing under instrument meteorological conditions. ILS approaches are considered precision approaches. In this maneuver execution video, we will not be covering detailed aerodynamics, maneuver diagrams, common student errors, or the ACS standards. This video is to simply explain and demonstrate the execution of the maneuver and will vary based on the aircraft you are flying. To see all the additional details we just mentioned and to study this lesson's full-length presentation, podcast, diagrams, flashcards, lesson quiz, and a whole bunch more, look up the ILS approach lesson on our website at wificfi.com. Lastly, before we jump into the cockpit, there are a couple of key factors that we need to cover regarding this maneuver. In today's example, we will be executing the ILS runway 3 approach to the Ogden, Utah airport. The identifier for the Ogden, Utah airport is KOGD, Oscar Golf Delta. We would suggest pulling up this approach plate on a separate device or screen to look at and follow along with us as we demonstrate the approach to you. That way you'll more understand everything that's going on and you can see what we're doing and when we're doing it and how that compares to the actual approach plate. Today we will be completing the entire approach from the initial approach fix IAF at Ryden intersection. We will begin just outside of Ryden at 8,000 feet MSL, and we'll start off by completing our approach ABC checklist. I always suggest doing the ABC checklist before you do an approach and doing it as soon as you can, as soon as you know which approach you're doing. Do the ABC checklist so that you can just focus on flying the airplane after that. The ABC checklist. A stands for airspeed and the airport's ATIS or AWAS, just to get the local weather. So get your airspeed under control, get the local weather. B is to build and brief the approach. We'll build it in our GPS, we'll set up all of our navigation systems, and we'll also brief the approach out loud. And then C is to complete the checklist, which is the approach checklist for your airplane. That is obviously going to vary based on which airplane you're flying, so we'll just do a real generic one here in our Cessna 172 today. After completing these items, we will complete the entire approach to the approach minimum, so we're going to bring it all the way down to the minimums under simulated instrument conditions. So we'll not be looking outside at visual references, we won't be looking outside the windows of the airplane at all. We will make a normal straight in landing to runway 3, and that will conclude our approach. So we'll cover the rest of all the details during the flight. Let's head out to the airplane and shoot this instrument approach. Alright students, welcome out to our airplane as we start to get set up for the ILS runway 3 approach to the Ogden airport. So let's go ahead, we're flying along, we're going to show you where we're at, and then we're going to show you how we get everything set up inside of the cockpit to go ahead and shoot this approach. So you can see it's a nice beautiful day today, but our view until we get ready to land is going to be just like this. We're simulating instrument conditions here. Alright, so we're still climbing up to our 8,000 feet, which is where we want to be to start this maneuver. Our climb speed's pretty good. We're at like our VY of 74, 75 knots. So we're all good there. And we're just flying kind of on a random heading to get set up for the approach. A couple other things that we've already gone ahead and done is we've got our ILS approach frequency in, the localizer frequency 111.7, we've got 115.7, the Ogden VOR for the backup in case we need to go missed on the missed approach. We have Salt Lake approach frequency because that's who we'd be talking to on the radio at this point in our flight. And we've got Ogden Tower set in there as the backup. I'm going to nose down just a touch on my climb speed. Okay, we've got our DME, everything's basically all set up to go ahead and shoot this approach. So once we know what approach we're going to be getting, ATC could say, you know, Cessna Wi-Fi CFI, expect the ILS 3 approach in Ogden, or they could say you're going to do, you know, if they let you know, or if they're just letting you pick, or if you're out in the practice area practicing and you know that this is the approach that you're going to do. Then we can go ahead and start to do our ABCs. which is to get our A, again, is to get our airspeed where we want it. I want to be between 90 and 100 knots here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my power back so I can stay right between that 90 and 100. And I'm going to get my ATIS. So I have Ogden's ATIS in COM 2 right here, 125.55. I'm not sure if it'll actually play it here on the flight simulator, but I do have it tuned into COM 2, and I could go ahead and hit this COM 2 button. Listen to the ATIS. Yep, it's not playing anything. But that's what you do. You'd listen to the ATIS or the AWAS for the airport, and you know, write all that stuff down. Next, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and build the approach. Now, I like to build it in the GPS before I brief it, because when you brief it, you want to make sure that as you're briefing the different items, they're already programmed into your airplane if you are going to be using a GPS like we are today. And if you go ahead and build it first, then usually when you brief it, the brief goes pretty quick. So I'm going to show you how to get this built on the G1000. Remember, this depends on which airplane you're flying. It'll be completely different. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get nearest. Ogden does have to be our destination, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that first. And then I can click this procedures button. I'm going to scroll down to select approach. We got the ILS 3, and we're going to be starting from riding. So I'm going to get ILS 3, ILS 3. We're going to start from riding, enter, and then I am just going to go ahead and activate it right now since we are ready to head over there. So go ahead and click activate, and I am going to switch over to nav for my autopilot. So we're flying the nav. Now, I'm going to be shooting this approach in the autopilot just so I can teach it and I can hop back and forth, show you guys everything. Also, running the GPS units and everything here can be quite difficult on the flight simulator. So we're just going to go ahead and start heading over to our riding intersection. Alright, we've got the approach built now. Just remember, before you build it on the G1000, Ogden does have to be your destination airport. If Ogden is not the destination airport, then you're going to be pulling up random approaches, or whatever the destination airport is, that's where you're going to get your approaches for when you come down here and click this procedures button. Okay. Alright, but we did direct to Ogden, whatever, hit the procedures button, and then it brought up our approach for us. So we're heading out over there. Now we can go ahead and brief the approach. Again, if you have this approach plate pulled up on a different screen, an iPad, phone, whatever it may be, you can follow along with me as I brief it. We're going to be doing the ILS runway 3 approach to the Ogden Airport. Our localizer frequency is 111.7. I have that tuned in and it is in my active. Our approach course is going to be 034. So I'm going to show you a little trick here, what I like to do. Because I want to put my approach course in right now as I'm briefing this. So I'm going to get my heading set up. I'm going to swap over to heading mode on my autopilot. Then I'm going to swap my CDI, and look, it's already on 034 because I loaded the approach. The G1000 is amazing. So, again, localizer frequency 111.7. We've got our approach course 034, so we put the head of our needle on 034. Now I'm going to go ahead and swap it back to our GPS, and we can switch it back to nav mode. Great. Our runway landing length is 7,252 feet. Touchdown zone and airport elevation are both at 4,473 feet. DME is required for this approach. We've got it. And radar required for procedure entry. We've got it. On our notes, we have a non-standard takeoff and non-standard alternate minimums. In our notes section, it says runway 3 helicopter visibility reduction. Okay, that doesn't apply to us. For in-op ALS, we'll say that doesn't apply to us. Straight in ILS 3. All cats visibility, you know, blah 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 blah. We're going to read through all of the notes and see if anything applies to us or if it does not. Okay, checking our instruments, making sure everything's looking good. We got 11 miles until we get to ride. Alright, we've got miles for our approach lights. Our missed approach procedure is to climb straight ahead to 5,000, then climbing left turn to 9,000, direct to the Ogden VOR, and on Ogden VOR radio 263 out to Moint, which is 15.1 dB, and hold, and we'll continue the climb in the hold to 9,000. I already got all of our frequencies in. We got the ATIS 125.55. Select approach, we're already talking to them on 121.1, and Ogden Tower is 118.7. So I'm going to pop up here and make sure I've got 118.7 in my COM 1, and it is. Ground control is 121.7. We'll worry about that once we get on the ground. Alright, so we are going to be coming to Ryden intersection. After Ryden, we're going to be on a course of 116 and we'll descend to 8,000 feet. We are already at 8,000 feet, so what we're going to do is just maintain altitude after we cross Ryden. That is going to take us to Joseph intersection. Joseph will intercept our final approach course of 034, make our descent to 6,000 until Wolf. After crossing Wolf, we can then go ahead and descend on the glide slope down to our minimums of 4,740, and we need 3/4 statute mile of visibility to land flight visibility. So we can go down all the way down to 4,740. Right. On our final approach course, if we don't see that, then we're going to go ahead and go missed. If we do see the airport, then we'll go ahead and land. And we'll also start a timer as we cross Wolf. I'm actually even going to pop up my timer right now, so don't forget to do it. Let's see. As we cross Wolf, just in case we do lose our glide slope, then this will revert to a localized only approach, and we're going to be coming in about 90 knots, so we'll be at 3 minutes and 4 seconds. So if we don't see the runway environment in 3 minutes and 4 seconds, that is the miss approach point, and we'll go miss. So we'll start this timer as we cross the final approach fix as well. There we go. So now we've got it built, we've got it briefed, we've got all of our frequencies in, everything's ready to go. Now what we would do is go ahead and do the approach checklist. This is where you could adjust your mixture, flip on your lights, whatever lights you might need, and whatever else would be on the approach checklist for your airplane. You would go ahead and complete that at this point. So really, as long as you get the ABC checklist done like as quickly and efficiently as you can, as soon as you know which approach you're doing, then flying an approach is really pretty simple. Okay. I shouldn't say pretty simple, but it just takes a huge load off and makes it quite a bit easier to shoot this instrument approach. I'm going to pop over here. I think I'm actually going to range out a little bit so I can see. Oh, did I turn that on? Okay. I'm going to range in just a little bit now. Kind of see where we're at. On our way to Ryden. For some reason on the sim here it puts it as a user waypoint, but whatever. So user is really actually Ryden, so we're going to go Ryden, Joseph, Wolf, and then inbound. So we'll head back over. And we're just shooting this whole thing under simulated instrument conditions as we go. So you'd be focused on your altitude, your course, your heading, your airspeed, all those different things. One big thing to remember is you can be in GPS mode right now, but before you get to the final approach fix, okay, you do have to switch over to the correct navigation source. We would have to switch over to nav 1 and follow the localizer in. I cannot use the GPS for the final approach course, but I can use it for now to get to the final approach course. But once I get there, remember, we have to click this CDI button and follow the ILS, the localizer, into land. So we will be switching that. Just for now, we can use GPS, but once we get there to that final approach course, we'll have to swap. That's something to remember. Looks like the sim is actually even starting to pick up our glide slope. You can see right here. So this will be high, low. Right there's where the glide slope is. Now, in real life, would you pick it up this far out? Maybe, maybe not. But as we get closer, you definitely would. Okay, the simulator is already picking it up. Got about a mile until we get to Ryden. Remember, after riding, we're going to stay at 8,000 feet. Our course is just going to change. We will be descending after we cross Joseph. We'll be descending down to 6,000. Okay, so we just passed riding. We're going to head over to Joseph. We're going to stay at 8,000 feet, but our course is changing so that we can proceed to Joseph. I like to keep my heading bug synced up with where I'm actually with my course, where I'm actually flying, even when I'm on autopilot. And we've got 1.2 miles to Joseph. Coming up here on Joseph, I'm going to change my altitude now down to 6,000 feet. You notice the autopilot doesn't start descending until I tell it to. We're going to go ahead and be turning here, and we're going to go ahead and start our descent. We're going to nose down. I get about 600-700 feet a minute. Bring our power back as well so we don't get cruising way too fast here. So now we're turning to intercept our final approach course. You can see that the G1000 automatically switched our navigation source for us. It went from that GPS source that we were using to the localizer automatically. Make sure that that happens. If that doesn't happen, remember you got to come down and click this CDI soft key button so that you are following the localizer and you're not following the GPS. Probably pull back even some more power here so we don't get going too fast. And we're going down to 6,000 feet. Looks like our autopilot also went into approach mode right here, kind of. Okay, it's on the approach course, but we haven't intercepted the glide slope yet. Coming down to 6,000 feet before we get to to Wolf. We have 7 miles to Wolf. And we're going to be at 6,000 feet when we cross Wolf and on our final approach course in 034. About 1,000 feet to go on our descent. Typically right before you cross the final approach fix, which here is going to be Wolf or intercepting the glide slope, right? You would bring some power back, add in a notch of flaps, and continue your descent. You're kind of starting to configure for your landing, which we'll be doing in just a minute. We still have 6 miles until 5.9. If you guys don't know where I'm reading those distances, that's right here. Okay, so from Joseph to Wolf, it's telling me my distance and then my bearing. So 5.6 and 033 on our degrees. 500 feet on our descent left. Feet on the descent. Feet left. I'm going to start to bring in that power so we don't get too slow. Still got about 4 miles to Wolf. It would be somewhere around here, probably even sooner that, well, maybe. It kind of depends. That Salt Lake approach would have cleared us for the approach, so you're cleared for the ILS 3 approach in Ogden. Say Roger, cleared. and then pretty soon here they'd be switching us over to Ogden Tower. Yeah, it'd probably be right around here, usually a couple miles before the final approach fix. They'll swap you over to tower or the common traffic advisory frequency if you're going to a non-towered airport. Say they swap us over to tower, we can go ahead and swap that there. Oh, this one won't let me because I'm in the wrong zone. Just screwed up my frequencies. It likes to automatically run my comms for me, so whatever. But anyways, about here they'd say contact Ogden Tower, so then we would go ahead and contact Ogden Tower, tell them we're on the ILS 3 and we're looking for a full stop landing. Say Roger. They could either clear us to land or they would just tell us, okay, sounds good, we'll let you know which runway to land on, you know, later or whatever. We'll clear if you're landing in a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna make sure we're coming up on Wolf here. We got a mile left. In just a minute, as this glide slope starts to come in, so we can say glide slope alive. As you can see, our glide slope needle start to come in. When we get a little closer, I'm going to switch our autopilot over to approach mode so that it follows that glide slope down, and we're going to bring back some power and add in a notch of flaps in just a sec. At our 6,000 feet, there it is. So let's go ahead and hit approach mode, bring back some power, extend a notch of flaps. We'll be looking for between 80 and 90 or so. You can see that we've captured our glide slope, so now GPS will start our glide slope. Make sure that we start our timer. I might have started that timer, you know, probably 10-15 seconds later or whatever, so we'll take the timer to, we'll say 2:50, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. If we were to lose our glide slope, we'd fly this as a localized approach, and at 2 minutes and 15 seconds is when we would go miss if we did not see a runway. Okay, so we're following our glide slope, our localizer, about 500-600 feet per minute here. I can probably bring even some more power back. This plane just really wants to go, doesn't it? Got a notch of flaps in. Slowing down. Gonna be looking for between 80 and 90. Bringing back some power. Then once we get a little closer, I'm gonna go ahead and pop my head outside of the cockpit. Remember, we can take this all the way down to 4,740 feet. Okay, so basically let's call it 4,800 feet. We can bring this down to 4,800, and then I'll go ahead and switch my camera. We'll kick off the autopilot and do a normal landing. So we got 400 feet to go to our minimums. Remember, we're watching our course, we're following our glide slope, we're watching our speed, course, glide slope, speed, course, altitude, glide slope, speed, the whole thing. You just keep saying that over and over, all the way down. Won't even let me switch over to Ogden Tower yet, whatever. Okay, so we got 200 feet to go to our minimums.
500.
You can ignore that little 500 thing. Bring in even some more power back. Glide. It looks like the autopilot's having a little bit of a hard time following the glide slope here. We might need to kick off our autopilot just in a little quicker. 4,800 feet. Let's go ahead and pop outside of the cockpit now. Oop, see where we're at. Looking good. We're gonna bring it in for our landing right here. That autopilot brought us in pretty high, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and extend all of our flaps. That last little bit there, it didn't want to continue to follow, so I had to kick it off real quick. Honestly, that would probably have been a great time to go ahead and do a missed approach, but we'll do that on our next video. So we got our flaps in, we're slowing her down, and we're just going to come in for our normal landing here. Again, it did kind of bring us in just a little bit high, or actually quite a bit high, right there at the very end, which would have been a great time demonstrate a missed approach. But we kicked off the autopilot, we saw the runway, we brought it down to our minimums, and that is how you set up for and complete an instrument approach. Okay, do the ABC checklist as fast as you can, get everything built, briefed, got the weather, got our clearances, and then we're just flying the airplane. Nice gentle descent, 500-600 feet per minute on the glide slope. Very small course corrections back and forth for the localizer. Bring it in nice and gentle at the right speeds, everything like that. Don't let the autopilot get you too high or anything. Bring it in for a good, nice, normal landing, and then you can call it a day and go get your $100 hamburger. So that is it for this lesson, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on our next approach lesson coming up soon.